Wander Wealthy Podcast, episode 165 with Vianney Leigh. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Wander Wealthy Podcast. My name is Tess. I'm your host, and today I am bringing on a special guest who is an expert in her field, and we are going to be talking about something you probably never thought you would hear on a business and money podcast. But it's shocking how helpful this topic is once you understand it and you can integrate it into your life. So the topic is about the menstrual cycle, and specifically the female menstrual cycle. However, I think that whether you are a woman, a man, non-binary, this is still going to be very helpful for you. Whether you have a menstrual cycle or you don't, you can understand the value of a menstrual cycle and how it, you can work with it and you can utilize it. Or if you know someone who has one, you can understand their life and how to work with them within their cycle. I also do believe and feel, and the guest in this episode shares, that all humans have a cycle. We just cycle in different ways. So being able to identify how you cycle and utilize the different phases of your cycle to help you become more productive and powerful in your life and your business is also something really, really awesome. So today's topic is about utilizing our flow for business. And I'm bringing on a dear friend, Vianney Leigh, to talk about it. Now, Vianney is a period success coach. She's also certified in all of the wonderful modalities that I am certified in as well, because we met at the certification that we both went through. And Vianney specifically helps highly driven entrepreneurs understand and align to their menstrual cycles to avoid burnout, eliminate PMS so that they can find their flow, stop hustling, improve their health and harmony and impact and influence. And she's just such an expert in this field. She's gone through her own trials and tribulations with her menstrual cycle. And now if you ever get the pleasure and the honor to meet Vianney, you'll notice that she truly embodies the work that she teaches and helps her clients implement into their lives. She's always talking about and pointing out where she is at in her cycle, how she's utilizing her cycle for success. And I just think this information is so important for us to gain access to, because first of all, there's so much that is just packed into this episode that we don't learn at all in our own, health classes, and even just like what you see on TV about what a menstrual cycle entails. But Vianney also goes the extra step, and we talk about how to utilize the different phases of your cycle and tap into them and, leverage them for business success, for ultimate productivity, and to know that if there's a phase where you're not feeling as outgoing and charismatic, there's nothing wrong with you. That is part of your cycle, and you need to identify the tasks and the projects that you should be working on in that period versus a different period. So I'm not going to jabber on anymore. I think we should just get right into this episode, because you guys are going to get so much out of it. Make sure you have a pen and paper handy so you can take some notes and learn from my guest today, Vianney Leigh. Vianney, welcome to the Wander Wealthy Podcast. I am so thrilled that you are on the show today. I'm going to go ahead and tell people how we met, because we met in a magical way at our certification. And
yes,
we got to do a lot of work together. And I feel like you were one of the people that not introduced me, but started pointing out angel numbers to me. And now I see them everywhere, especially yours, 444.
Yes, I'm so happy to hear that.
I just want you to know. But please tell the people who you are and what your story is and how you got to where you are today. Oh my gosh, this is going to be a long one. Sorry.
Thanks so much for having me, Tess. I'm so excited. And it makes me so happy to hear that you are seeing angel numbers. I didn't know that I was the one that brought them to your attention, and I see them all day, every day, by the way. My name's Vianney Leigh, and I'm in London in the UK. And what actually happened with me, my story, how I came to do what I do, was I actually was struggling with severe PMS, a condition called premenstrual dysphoric disorder, PMDD. And that's a hormone-based mood disorder. And this was really affecting my life for a number of years. And it was probably taking about two or three weeks out of my month.
Wow.
Every month.
So you'd have one good week a month.
Pretty much, yeah, one good week. And that week I was like just going wild. So my symptoms included things like they were mental and emotional symptoms, as well as physical. But I suffered from episodes of rage and mood swings and depression and joint pain, muscle pain, insomnia, extreme fatigue, a lot of anxiety, irritability. I had a lot of difficulty concentrating with tasks, and not to mention period pains and cramps, right?
Yeah.
Bloating, you name it. And
how long and when did this come about?
Looking back on it, I would say I was diagnosed with it in 2018, and I would say that the symptoms were very, very evident for about 3 years before that.
Wow. So you were just living with it, like
just living with it.
Just the way it's supposed to be.
Yeah, just thinking everybody was kind of having this situation, but I was just too embarrassed to talk about it. And you know, during those times where I was having such a low time, I would literally self-isolate. I would keep myself to myself and spend the week that I came back into the world just trying to pick up the pieces of just ignoring everybody and trying to get back into work. So I'd recently got married, and this was in 2018. And at that time, I was still exploring a career change after working in the beauty industry as a makeup artist and consultant for about 13 years. But I had been self-employed for about 5. And I was desperately trying to make something of myself and grow my business. But every single month, it was like I just kept on getting stuck in bad moods, which led to procrastination, which led to anxiety, which led to just like not taking any inaction, which just ended in feeling really guilty and quite shameful. And I was just lacking the confidence to really go big because I was scared of like messing up, right? Which we've all been there. But so, yeah, I was diagnosed with this condition. And when I was diagnosed with it, I was told that there was no cure and I would just have to manage my symptoms. And when I found that out, I was like, I've got 2 choices here. I can either accept that or I can try and figure it out, right? So what happened next for me was quite magical, to be honest with you, because they say when you're ready for the lesson, the teacher appears.
Yeah.
And I just started taking these consistent steps to, you know, once I'd made that connection that there was an issue with my menstrual cycle and that was affecting my output or my lifestyle, I just started implementing cycle awareness and really getting down with my flow. And taking action on the lessons that I have like created within my own coaching program. And then things really started to shift for me. I started to have less painful periods. My mood was a lot calmer. My mind was a lot sharper. And I was finally able to kind of gain that clarity that I needed to start the business of my dreams, which was coaching, being a coach.
Yeah.
And then I went and got the certification with Yes Supply and became certified in NLP, hypnosis, time techniques, and all of that good stuff.
Yeah. And I think it's so beautiful what you do. And I mean, very similar to me wanting this certification for mindset work to put on top of like you can chart the flow, you can give people the strategy, but there's a lot of mindset that goes into it, and even a lot of like mental and emotional healing that goes into the work that you do. So I love that. And the other thing that I love is that you really stepped into the role, like this leadership position of being able to be a coach, knowing the pains and the struggles that your clients went through. And that's something that I really resonate with. And I'm sure it feels really, really fulfilling for you to be able to resonate with your clients and be like, I understand. I mean, I don't know if you're supposed to be like, I understand what you're going through, but you can feel for them. You can even speak to that, and they really feel that you do you do understand in a certain way what sort of pains and struggles and issues that they're running into. So
yeah, absolutely. And it's like, I have seen it now as a time that was really, dark, or, I kind of felt like I was just going round and round in circles. Well, I literally was going round and round in circles, because a menstrual cycle is a circle. But I was able to like turn that adversity into something that would help others, and because I felt so alone, I thought that everybody kind of went through this, or I was the only person in the world that went through this, right? And to be able to get women back in touch with their bodies, and to be empowered by their bodies, and, start seeing themselves as powerful and confident and consistent and successful, it literally transformed my life. And I'm just hooked on helping people to stop letting their hormones like run rings around them, and so they can finally get their confidence back without any like fear or guilt or shame, so they can start making those moves, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I think, it's unfortunate that it's really interesting the way that the work that you do is it runs tandem to like being a money coach, which is where I was working for so many years, in the sense that like you don't learn about this stuff in school, but these are like the things that we need to learn about, especially women going through, their cycle and understanding hormones, and the fact that like you probably just thought that everyone experienced these problems. Same with finances. We think like, well, actually we think nobody has these problems except for me, and I should not ask any, like you think everyone experiences it, but no one experiences it. It's very isolating, like you said.
Yeah.
And there's no appropriate education. And so we as the coaches have to step in and help our clients understand, and also be like, there's nothing wrong with you for not knowing this before, because it is.
You had to seek it out.
Yeah.
It wasn't readily available for you. And it's a shame. I've had so many in my head arguments in the shower, like, why wasn't we taught this stuff in school? And one of my goals is to actually get this as part of like the curriculum. It's part of education, menstrual mindset, understanding how your body works, because it took me to get into my 30s to realize what an actual menstrual cycle was and what it's supposed to be doing. And it's outrageous.
It is. It absolutely is. So I want to dive into that. You are my flow expert. But before we go into that, this is a money podcast. Yeah. And we've gotten a chance to talk about money quite a bit. That's just that comes with the territory when you become my friend. But before we even talk about where you're at today, I'd love to know about your money story. I think it's really interesting to learn and hear from other people where they came from, how they grew up around money, and maybe how that played a role, either good or bad, in their current life and their relationship with money today.
Okay, so let's start with how I grew up around money. So I grew up in a 2-parent household, and one of my parents is incredibly financially savvy. That's my dad. He is like a wizard when it comes to numbers, very old school, still laughs at me and my sister if we need to get a calculator out, right? Because he's like, you should know that in your head. And, you know, is very, very smart when it comes to money, and someone I can lean on if I did have any kind of, you know, questions surrounding what I should be doing with my money. And on the flip side, I've got my lovely, beautiful mom who enjoys spending money, right? She enjoys spending money, and she's very generous as well. So I suppose I had quite an interesting balance of seeing money from all different aspects. Money as something that you should be looking at from a risk point of view, and money that you should be looking at from a point of view as, you know, it's abundant, it's always going to be there, right? So I've always had that kind of those conflicting views, really. And I suppose that's left me up until recently in a situation where I wasn't quite sure on how I should be having my mindset around money. So I've been in situations where I have always thought, you know, money comes to me easily and effortlessly. I've had that mindset, but then I've always thought, no, you should be saving, you should be saving, you should be saving, you should be spending any money. So I suppose from that, I wouldn't say it's either good or bad. I suppose I see it as I've always had an interesting balance, an interesting dynamic around money. But I've definitely had a belief in the past that I had to work extremely hard to make money. You're aware of this. Yeah, you have to work around the clock 24/7 to make money.
Yeah. And I think that a lot of people will be able to resonate with you, because it is interesting, especially when we think about like parent dynamics. A lot of times you have one parent who is very, you know, paying attention to the finances, very much a stickler. And then the other one is like, here we go, let's spend it. And a lot of times, and I say this, like, whether you grew up in a wealthy household or a household that really struggled, whether one parent was good with money, one was bad, or you just grew up from one of those dynamics, what is really interesting is the way that plays into us. Like, let's say you grew up in a household where the money, the relationship with money was just overall not good. The house, you were not, you know, fortunate or well off. You can pull from that things that will hold you back from a mindset perspective, just as much as someone who grew up in a like well-off, fortunate household could pull from that. And same with if you have one parent who is more of a spender and one who is more of a stickler, you pull from that and you kind of embody and get programmed with whatever you deemed as like survival. And so on one end, you can think, you know, I'm doomed no matter what.
Yeah.
Right? Like, no matter what your parents' intentions were, like, we always just take from it something that we think is going to help us survive. And then ultimately that usually, not usually, but oftentimes can lead to self-sabotage, because we're like, oh, we're supposed to think abundantly about money all the time. And then we forget to actually like check the bank balance. Or it's like, we're supposed to be a stickler and never spend any money, but then we forget to, you know, live our lives.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so on one end, it can be like, you know, I love that you said it's neither a good thing or a bad thing, because I think it could be a bad thing if you look at it like that, or you can reframe it and go, this can actually serve me. Like, I can believe that money comes to me easily and effortlessly when I need it, but I also know exactly what to do with it when it does come in.
Absolutely.
So I can take care of it.
Yeah. So. And it's funny because my mom, she is spiritual, right? She's got a faith, and you know, that whole money comes to me easily and effortlessly mindset, and the world is abundant, is, you know, something I've grown up believing.
Right.
Whereas my dad does not believe that at all. He is very factual, logical, you know, using his conscious mind. And it's just a very interesting dynamic where I haven't had to want for much growing up, but I am very aware now of, you know, a situation where if it wasn't going to be there, I would need to work to get it there.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's, we can play this to the coaching that we do. It's like you have to have the mindset piece just as much as you have to have the structure.
Strategy. Yeah. Yeah.
It's
absolutely.
like you can believe and manifest all you want, but you have to take action and you have to track and you have to, put the systems in place too.
Exactly.
It's the blending of the two. So
yeah,
you got a good blend.
Thank you. It's definitely serving me well these days.
Awesome. So we're going to go into the tangible tips round. I usually don't talk about the rounds on the show, but I do break this into rounds. But I really just want you to pretty much school us on our flow. I can say being in conversation with you, you're always talking about like, I'm in winter. I just started winter, or like, I'm in the middle of fall. And I'm like, what? So I'd love for you to kind of walk us through maybe just a little lesson of how we can think about our menstrual cycle. And then we'll kind of take it from there and identify how we can use it for our benefit.
Okay. Well, first of all, the menstrual cycle is simply the most amazing thing ever. And it is working without you even having to think about it. So if we were to break it down in a nice, easy way for you to understand, and for a fun way for you to resonate actually with, is to look at it like nature. So our cycle is actually broken into 4 seasons or 4 phases. Mm-hmm. And those 4 phases actually replicate the seasons that we have in nature: spring, summer, autumn, winter. So your menstrual cycle, first of all, quick disclaimer, your menstrual cycle is not your period. Your period is not your menstrual cycle. Okay, so your menstrual cycle is that entire pattern that your body is following for about 28 days, typically 28 days. And your period is the time that you are bleeding. Okay, so if we were to just quickly go through the cycle basics. So the first phase that we're looking at here is your menstrual phase. And that is normally it could be around 3 to 7 days of bleeding, right? Mm-hmm. And during your menstrual cycle, it also correlates to the lunar cycle. So the moon phases typically have around 28 days as well. So during your menstrual phase, this is what you could also call the new moon, okay? Or your inner winter. So when you think about winter, what do you think about?
Darkness, cold. I think that's it. Snow.
Okay. Darkness, cold, and snow. I love it. Okay, so winter, when you think about winter, you are really thinking about
staying inside.
Yeah, resting, hibernating, and restoring yourself. And it's a great time for you where you could actually really connect with your soul and reflect on what it is that you need to release before stepping into this new you as this cycle ends, right? And what's actually happening here is that you're really like awakening. You're awakening and you're growing. And that time is really important for you to rest, okay? So, and then when you think about what happens after your period, this is now called the follicular phase. And the follicular phase is what we can also identify as spring, right? Mm-hmm. So spring is probably, it could be around 6 to 7 days again. And if we were to speak about the moon phases, it's the waxing moon. And during this time, it's all about activation. It's all about a new start, fresh beginnings, quietly making your way back into the world, right? Mm-hmm. And what do you see in spring? You see cherry blossoms appearing, and you see like just new beginnings, hope, and it just feels really playful. Mm-hmm. And that's exactly how you feel in your body when you're having your menstrual cycle. So if we were to move on to what happens after that, it's the ovulation phase. So this is the shortest time of your cycle, the shortest phase of your cycle. And most people want to really hold on to this phase of your cycle, because it's summer. It's your inner summer. And this is like your superhero time. It is time to be expansive, to take action, and to execute. Mm-hmm. And when you think about summer, what do you think of?
Going outside.
Going outside. What else?
Socializing, being warm, drinking on a patio somewhere.
Exactly. Because summer is the season of abundance in energy, your abundance in confidence, and like stamina, patience, motivation, everything. And what's actually happening here is your hormone levels are at its peak, and scientifically, your body is preparing itself to release an egg and then be fertilized. Mm-hmm. And this is the time that you are magnetic as F, right? Mm-hmm. You are magnetic. You are wanting to be seen, and you're really confident. You've got a spring in your step. And that is what's happening in your cycle during your ovulation phase, your inner summer. And then when summer comes to an end, we then go into autumn or fall, right? Mm-hmm. And this is the time of your cycle where you could possibly experience PMS. And this is the time in your cycle where premenstrual symptoms may arise. But also, it's a time that also possibly gets a bad rap, okay? So this is called your luteal phase. And I would say this is the time where you can really be focusing. And with the moon phases, you're looking at a waning moon, right? So this is the time when you think about autumn, we're grounding down, we're balancing our energies, we're tying up loose ends, we're getting ourselves ready for another winter, right? Another cold winter. And it's really about listening to that call for retreat, really listening and going inwards during this time, because your body is preparing to bleed. Yeah. Yes. And so it's really, really interesting how you can identify your cycle looking at these seasons. But also, just to make you aware, if you are on hormonal birth control, this experience may look a little bit differently. And I'm happy to touch on that as to why.
Yeah, please do.
Okay, so with hormonal contraception, you are actually not having a period, right? So the hormones you get in these types of contraceptives, they are synthetic versions of the actual hormone. Yeah. So the whole chemical structure, it looks similar. So you may think that you're getting estrogen, but you're getting estradiol, or you may think you're getting progesterone, but you're actually getting progestin, right? And what they do is actually completely opposite. And what's happening with your cycle, if you are on hormonal contraception, is you're suppressing your menstrual cycle. And what happens there, it means that you're not ovulating. So that bleed that you get when you're on hormonal contraception is a withdrawal bleed. It's not a real period bleed. And it's actually preventing you from knowing how healthy your body is. And it prevents you from reaping the rewards of those natural hormonal fluctuations that you get that are for your benefit. So the only contraception that allows you to have a full period is the IUD copper coil. So the IUD and the all of the different types of pills and all of those other things are synthetic hormones. And the IUD copper coil is non-hormonal.
I think it's so fascinating that like none of that you learn. Like even maybe if you had a good teacher, but like, let's be real. You don't learn anything about the phases, like even just like thinking like menstrual cycle is not your period is not your menstrual cycle. Like you don't even learn that. We don't learn anything about the hormones. We don't learn anything about like if birth control is an option. We don't learn about what that actually is doing to our body and how it might be, you know, and in some cases, birth control is great for many, many people. But in other cases, we also aren't being educated with like what is actually happening when you are on birth control. And I think we need to be, that information needs to be available to us, but it's not, even if it is a disclaimer on the back of the package, no one reads those.
Yeah. And birth control was actually, birth control was actually banned before 1950. And when they started creating it, they created it as just like trial random tests. Mm-hmm. And a lot of, to be honest with you, women's health is widely disrespected. There's not enough that goes into researching how this is going to affect the female reproductive system. Mm-hmm. And when it comes to birth control, there's so many implications that prevents you from, reaping the natural rewards of getting more progesterone or building up your estrogen levels or whatever it is. That's not clearly explained. It's like some people need to go on birth control, I understand, for whatever reasons. And if birth control is working for you, that's great. But if you've been on birth control for, 10 plus years and you actually don't know what it's doing to your body mm-hmm. or why you're actually on it, you need to ask yourself some serious questions. Is this still working for me?
Yeah.
And do I actually know what's going on here? Do I need to rethink it? Mm-hmm. Because otherwise you're just kind of living on autopilot thinking that this thing is regulating your period when that's actually a myth.
It's like creating a alternative version of a period for you.
Yeah.
So strange.
There are options out there.
Yes. Well, I am fascinated by this topic, and I think we could leave it at that and people would be like, damn. But I would love to tie it to business so that we can help the online coaches who are listening and who are like, okay, where's the tie-in? Why is this on the business show, on a money show? And you do talk a lot about identifying where you're at in your cycle and like the types of activities you should be doing. And I know that it also can relate to like how you should be showing up in your business. So I would love for you to just quickly revisit those cycles and tie them to like, what's a good business activity to be doing, which I think is really interesting because like we get 12 of these a year. So you can go through and just like generate things like crazy.
Well,
which I
to
think
make that
great.
12 even bigger, on average, we actually have around 500 periods in a lifetime.
Day. Oh my God.
So it's really important for me personally, I think it's really important to reframe your period as just a period, right? Mm-hmm. Or your menstrual cycle is just your menstrual cycle, and start seeing them as opportunities for growth. Mm-hmm. Because every single cycle is giving you an opportunity. 500 periods in a lifetime is giving you an opportunity to go through these phases of having more wisdom in your menstrual phase, or being able to focus more clearly in your inner autumn, your luteal mm-hmm. phase, or being able to be more magnetic and charismatic and expansive in your summer, or trying new things in your spring. They're opportunities for growth. Mm-hmm. So I really like the way that I see it in that way, and I definitely think my clients are starting to see that. My clients see that now as it's an opportunity. Your cycle is an opportunity. You've got 500 of them.
It's not something to hate or despise.
That has been society programming.
Yeah.
So to tie it into business, if I were to give you like one task that you can do during each phase of your cycle and each season. So let's start with spring. Yeah.
Right. So this is your follicular phase.
Yeah. So this is once you've finished. Yes, Tess. This is once you've finished your period. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And what's happening here is estrogen is slowly starting to rise. So that's that feel good hormone. So you're slowly feeling a little bit more like yourself. Mm-hmm. So one thing to do here, if you do have a business, is to possibly start brainstorming for what you want to create or what you want to achieve for the following month or for that following cycle, right? It's not going to, your period is not going to come on the first of each month, every month, right? So let's look at it per cycle. So it's a great time for planning, brainstorming, outlining content or scripts or whatever you've got, and it's a great time for you to be really inspired, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And then as we move into summer, so this is ovulation, I always talk about this is a great time to activate, right? So this is when you actually start executing that work. You could, design a new landing page, or you could write out all of your email sequences during this season, or you could batch create all of your podcast episodes. You've got tons of energy and you can spin a lot of plates. And then when you go into your autumn, so your luteal phase, again, like, yes, you may have a dip in energy. You may feel that shift in gears, so to speak, when you're coming from your summer to your autumn. However, it's a really good time to focus on doing that deep work and to start refining things and to finish off your projects. So edit or batch edit your podcast. I've just got podcast ideas in my head now. So edit your podcast recordings, or you could follow up with those leads that you haven't had a chance to get to in your DMs. So it's all about editing and refining. So those are some things that you could do there. And then in your winter, so this is again, so you're bleeding, so you're actually on your period. It's a great time for you to start really looking and reviewing and evaluating what is going on inside your business. Is it working for you? Is it not working for you? What's working, what's not? And if we're going to relate this to money, it'll be a really great time for you to look at your business finance template.
Oh, I love that.
Look at your business finance template and just make sure that you're on track and see how the last quarter looked to, the quarter before or whatever. So really good time, because during your menstrual phase, the left and right side of your brain hemispheres are communicating more optimally. So you're really able to see what is working and what isn't. So the evaluation tasks are amazing.
Oh, that's amazing. I mean, I think what is really cool is that this turns this thing that we despise and this thing that we're like, what's wrong with me? Why can't I show up, like I was showing up last week? Why am I feeling different? Why? And like, I think a lot of times, especially women, we feel like all this pressure on ourselves to do the same as our male counterparts, when our male counterparts don't have, I think I've read that they have a cycle where do they cycle daily or something?
They have a hormonal pattern that repeats itself every 24 hours. It's very, very different to the female menstrual cycle. And what's so interesting is that we try to follow that linear pattern, which is not serving us.
Right.
It leaves us burnt out, overwhelmed, and feeling really guilty.
Yeah. And you think like, there's something wrong with me. I can't keep up. And it's not about keeping up, but it's about knowing thyself and being able to identify like when you're at your best, when to say yes to those opportunities if you can, and when it's not necessarily like, it's like, okay, I'll talk to you next week. I'll do that, but I'm going to do that. And especially if you do have your own business, you're much more able to adjust and plan around that, which I think is really magical.
Absolutely. And that's why I struggled for those years when I had my own makeup and consultancy business, to keep that momentum going. And I thought that there was something wrong with me, but what's actually happening is I wasn't giving myself permission to go with my flow. Yeah. And this is why my business is called Status Flow Collective, because it's all about disrupting that status quo that says we need to work around the clock, squeeze everything into that 24 hours. Our periods are a pain in the ass. Our periods are taboo. All of that negative programming that's been put upon you since you were like as young as 8 years old.
Yeah.
Your period is a disruption, or, oh my God, here it comes again. When actually...
And not to mention, this is something we need to deal with in private.
In private. It's all hush, hush, shush, shush. Pass me a tampon if you've got one, please.
Yeah.
And it's actually something that works for you. it's your actual superpower. So that's what I'm super passionate about, getting out into the world and helping, creative driven female entrepreneurs to really see that you can use this as a tool and as a resource to grow and scale your business.
Yeah, I love this. And I wish we had 100 more hours to talk about this. But I want to thank you for dropping so much knowledge and so much information for us, because that is super helpful to just be able to identify like one thing you could be doing right now and when it's the best time to be brainstorming content and all the other things. So I know that you have a tracker that maybe we can link up so that people can kind of follow it and implement and take notes from this on their tracker to find out when it's the best time for them to be doing these things. So where can people get that? Do you have like a link, or I can put it in the show notes?
Yeah, definitely. Pop it in the show notes. It's actually a free action guide that includes not just the cycle tracker, but you also get a little guide on how to reduce PMS anxiety, which is a thing. So you can really improve your mental health and manage your thoughts better and feel good. And then I've also got some self-care checklists which are aligned to the seasons, because how you self-care in your summer is not the same how you self-care in your spring.
Ooh, right? Juicy.
And then also in the guide, it's got a little bit about seed cycling, which is a method that you can use to balance your hormones using different seeds during each phase of your cycle.
Oh, cool.
And there's just a lot of like step-by-step little strategies in there that you can use, so you can start finding your flow and getting down with it.
Okay, so there's way more in this action guide than the thing that you emailed me. So I'm going to go sign up for this now.
Oh yeah, maybe.
It's okay. It was a while ago.
Yeah,
you definitely expanded it. So where can people go to get that? I typically leave this for the end, but we're plugging it in now because you got to go get it.
So you can grab it from the link in my bio on my Instagram. My Instagram is @statusflow with a W at the end of flow.co. And then as you go to the link in the bio, it's called Your Perfect Flow Formula.
Amazing. So I will link all of that stuff up in the show notes as well. But let's dive into the money round now. This one we're going to keep short because we went super in depth. So I think the best thing to ask you is, how are you? Well, I'll ask the question I always ask, which is, how are you making money right now? And for those, you can give us the whole, like, what has been going on up and how you've been making money previously. And now for those who are listening, we're recording March. I don't even know what the date is. This is what happens when you're in self-isolation. 26. So obviously we're in the middle of the COVID-19 pandemic. So things have been quite disrupted in terms of business and income. And I know that you have, well, you tell us.
Okay.
How have you been making money?
How I've been making money? So through my coaching business, so I was certified as a life and success coach, hypnotherapist, and all of those good things in January 2020. And, less than a month after coming back, my coaching business took off. So I've been making money that way, which is fantastic. I'm so happy and I'm super grateful. But prior to that, like I said, I've been working in the makeup industry for 14 years and I've been self-employed for 5. And during those 5 years, I've had a number of different ways of making money and having multiple streams of income coming in. So I had my own little mini makeup team in 3 salons in London. They weren't my own salons, but I was a resident artist and I trained up to trainee artists that were working under my name. I also was hired as a consultant working within product development because I actually studied cosmetic science. So cool. Know how to make makeup and skincare. And I'm still so passionate about the science behind cosmetics because, little segue, because there are endocrine disrupting chemicals as well in some of your personal care products, such as makeup and skincare and cleaning products, that can actually disrupt your hormone function. So I'm still really keen to, express that through my work. But yes, I was working as a consultant within a new product development team. I was heading up an artistry team for a brand. And most recently, I'd been freelancing as a pro artist for a brand in a private studio. But since the pandemic, well, first they implemented a no touch. Which,
how do you do that?
I wasn't there. When they said that they were doing that, I was like, okay, well, when I go back in, I suppose I'll figure it out. But then I hadn't been back. And I just kind of thought to myself, I'm just going to kind of stay put for a bit. And then that obviously has been closed down for until we know what's happening next. So yeah, I've had to pivot, which is fine.
Which I think everyone had. Everyone has to be pivoting during this situation. It's just like, if you're willing to pivot and if you are willing to be the person who's going to innovate and identify what needs to be out there right now, those are the people who are going to thrive.
Absolutely. So yeah, it's been interesting. And looking back, I've done so much. I've been able to travel with makeup and especially product development, going to like Hong Kong and Italy and all of these amazing places to help within product development. And that was a really great source of income. But I'm very adaptable and I'm so focused on coaching right now. I'm obsessed with my business. So I really, really, really just want to, double down and just focus on how I can make this a huge success.
Well, we can tell that you're very passionate about it. And I think that this is so important. And I'm so excited and proud of you for stepping into the role to not only educate us, but also coach us on how we can see this tool, our menstrual cycle, as a tool that can actually help us instead of us just being like letting it be another thing that we have to deal with as women.
Yeah, so letting it boss you instead of you knowing how to become the boss of it.
Exactly. What would you say your relationship with money is today?
I am so happy and grateful for you, Tess, because I have such a different relationship to money now. So shortly after coming back from my certification with you, we worked together, right?
Yeah, you did the Payday party workshop.
I did the Payday party workshop, which was insane and just really, it changed the game for me. I had a lot of like mind-blowing moments in there. And I'm really confident about money now, and I don't have any kind of like money limiting beliefs. When they do come up, I'm able to identify with them a lot quicker. But I know what's possible for me. I'm excited about money. Now that I have a system in place, the system that you created and that I'm using, and it works. It works. If anyone hasn't got Tess's system, you need to get in touch with her right now. So yeah, my relationship with money now is really, really positive and exciting.
Yeah. Amazing. Well, thank you for that. And now we'll dive into the quick and dirty Q&A to wrap up the show. So I just have a couple fast-paced questions for you. One is, I always like to ask, like, what's something totally random that you can't stop thinking about lately? But I'm even more interested in, like, what are you doing aside from working on your business? What are you doing to like keep yourself busy, or how are you distracting yourself or decompressing? Like, what are you spending your time on since we can't leave the house?
To be honest with you, I just love what I do. It doesn't feel like work. I'm excited to sit down at my desk every day and, just work on creating this business. But things that I am doing as well is, I always say, like, if I never trained to be a makeup artist originally, I would have wanted to be a chef.
Uh-huh.
And I love food. So I'm cooking a lot more.
I've been following that on your Instagram.
And I've been like obviously asking you for your recipes when you made your muffins or your cookies the other day. But yeah, like I've always been really keen in like, you know, discovering new recipes, and especially because the way that you eat to support your hormone function is a big part of what I do as well.
Mm-hmm.
So just cooking, I love cooking. Like, yeah, that's what I've been doing basically, cooking and working.
Love it. What is your favorite account on social media to follow?
Oh, I did try and like,
Is it embarrassing?
No, I'm just like, I feel bad sometimes for like leaving people out. But you know what? Let me just say this. My favorite account at the moment is Katie Prince.
Yes.
It's Katie Prince. She is a fellow coach, and she's just an amazing human being. She teaches people how to sell without feeling squirmy.
Mm-hmm.
And I just really love her content and her crazy behind the scenes stuff that she does.
So cool. The best piece of money advice that you have been told that you would like to pass along?
Oh my God. Okay. So, the best piece of advice, I suppose, is if you want to get out of debt, right? You don't focus on getting out of debt. You focus on how much money you want to make. Because you know this, Tess, but our subconscious mind will always, you know, go down the path of least resistance.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're focusing on debt, you're focusing on what you don't want. And it's so important that you do focus on what you want, because you're creating a picture of debt if you're thinking about getting out of debt.
Yeah.
So that changed the game for me, just knowing that, you know, if you want to get out of debt, you focus on making more money.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't want to be late, you focus on being early.
Not the, I need to not be late. You need to focus on, I need to get there 5 minutes ahead of time.
Exactly.
Yeah. And as a money coach, as a former money coach, it's always hard to, I had learned that going through learning about our subconscious and being able to tell people, you know, like, how do I say debt free? So I don't say debt. So people don't focus on debt.
Yeah.
So let's just start saying money, save, make more,
money.
all of it.
And this is something that Katie Prince says, but I think a lot of people say actually, but money is just energy, right? Mm-hmm. Money is just energy. It's just the exchange of your energy from what you have to offer as value, and then you're being rewarded for it via money. And I just love that reframe. I think it's really powerful, and it takes out that kind of ick factor to getting paid for your services and getting paid to show somebody something or teach or guide or coach someone on something that you have got experience in.
Love it. You gave us so many tips in just that one. No, money is energy. Don't focus on what you don't want. Yeah. Vianney, this has been amazing. Thank you so much for joining us and sharing all of your flow expertise. We appreciate it. And it's so crazy how we can link it to something, your menstrual cycle, something you probably only think about once a month when you're really annoyed with it. Now you get to think of it as a tool, and it can help you in your business. So we appreciate all of that. Tell us how we can stay in touch with you, where we can find you. Obviously, you dropped your Instagram, but tell us again so we make sure that people hear.
So Instagram is @statusflow.co. You can also find me on my podcast, which is called Periods and Power Moves. I've also got a YouTube channel, which is Status Flow Collective. And you can also find me on Facebook, Status Flow Collective as well.
Fabulous. We will link all of those up in the show notes and send everybody your way. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks so much for having me. I've loved this conversation. I love talking about money as well. So thanks so much, Tess.
And that's a wrap. Episode 165 with Vianney Leigh. You guys know for any of the links, resources that we mentioned in this episode, you can head to the show notes by going to wanderwealthypodcast.com/podcast/episode 165 to get in on all of that good stuff. And speaking of, when we were talking in this episode about the financial transformations that Vianney has personally gone through in her business and her life, she shared and we talked about her experience from the Payday Party workshop, which is perfect timing because we just so happen to be on the cusp of launching the next round of the Payday Party workshop. So let me tell you a little bit about what this workshop entails. This workshop is something that I host on a quarterly basis, and it's really about helping entrepreneurs, specifically online coaches out there, get really a much better understanding on how money should be flowing through their business and ultimately to them as an employee of their business. So if you're not paying yourself a regular amount of money from your business on a regular basis, then we need to get you set up with having your own payday parties. Payday parties are something that I do twice per month. I look forward to them every time, even if it's, a lower income month, because it is something that I crave. And the people who go through the Payday Party workshop end up craving them too, because it is such a great system that you can implement that helps you not only cultivate a stronger and better relationship with money as it goes through your business, but it also helps you feel so much more organized and in control of your business, the finances, and even of your personal finances. So if you sign up for this workshop, you're going to get a full week of live trainings where I'm going to step you through not only the mindset piece of how to cultivate a better relationship with your money in your business, but also how to set your purpose-driven revenue goals so that you can finally figure out what you should truly be aiming for, right? Like, I get that the 10K months are sexy, but how much do you really need to bring into your business so you can pay yourself a livable wage? And other than that, I help you identify how to implement a system where you host your very own payday party that you can log into your bank account, you can organize your money, and you can actually pay yourself. So you get that plus so much more by signing up for this Payday Party workshop. I offer a couple different tiers for you to get invested in depending on the transformation that you're looking for. But I gotta say, the transformation tier is the one that people get the best results from. And when you get into the transformation level, you get lifetime access to this content. So the Payday Party workshop is always evolving. I'm always updating new content or hosting random kind of one-off live trainings, but ultimately it is a resource and a tool for you to always come back to and be able to take that content and apply to your life. And in addition to that, you get a one-on-one call with me to help you implement the system that I teach in this workshop and ask any other questions under the sun that you might be having. So go to wanderwealthy.com/party if you want to sign up for this next round. We kick off on May 4th, and it's going to be a good time, you guys, and you don't want to miss out. So wanderwealthy.com/party, and I hope to see you there. Until next time, my friends, I hope you wander wealthy.